Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You may be seated. This Shabbat, we are very blessed to have in our midst Rakefet Ginsberg as our guest and speaker. Rakefet is the first woman to serve as the executive director of the Masorti movement in Israel, bringing transformative vision and strategic expertise to Masorti communal leadership. With extensive experience in crisis intervention and community resilience, Rakefet has leveraged her background in community development, organizational change, and strategic planning to drive significant initiatives, particularly during challenging times, such as the recent war in Israel, where she has guided the movement's critical response and support efforts, and we will talk about that more in just a moment. In 2021, Rakefet spearheaded a comprehensive strategic planning process for Masorti Judaism in Israel that positioned the movement for future growth and impact. Rakefet is a native Israeli, and she lives in Rosh Hashanah with her husband Ariel. She has 3 sons who are all officers in combat units in Israel, which means Rakefet hasn't slept since October 7th. And she is an incredible visionary and leader, and we are very honored this Shabbat to welcome my friend and the leader of the Masorti movement, Rakefet Ginsberg, to join us, please. Okay, first things first, Rakefet. This dome is a beautiful masterpiece. It came from the Brooklyn Jewish Center, and it represents our, not only beauty of the synagogue, but it represents our history. Now, we weren't part of the Brooklyn Jewish Center, but it tells us door to door, we are from one generation to the next. And amazing things happen under that dome, and they still do today. So when people see that dome, it really reminds them of the splendor of the synagogue and its history. We've put that dome into 2 things, a kippah and into this beautiful scarf. And this is a gift for you. And we hope you always know of the connection that you have for our movement and for you in particular to our shul. And may you wear it in good health for many, many years to come. Rakefet, Bevakasha, wear it in good health. We first met, I think it was the first week in November of 2023. I had heard about you. I've seen you on Zoom calls and other things. But we never met face-to-face. And where we met the first time was in Hostage Square. And it was when Hostage Square was just becoming Hostage Square. In fact, we didn't even meet at Hostage Square. We met at the building around the corner from Hostage Square that had been taken over. That was the central command center for all the families of the hostages. It was all the floors were taken over. And I met you, and you had introduced us to 3 different people who were loved ones, parents, and 1 brother of people who were held captive. And what we learned is that a week after October 7th, Hostage Square became a place because a man came and sat there on a chair and said, I have nowhere to go. And then people gathered around him because his family was killed or held hostage. And that little area became the place that it was. And what do Jews do when they gather in these places? They sing and they cry and they pray. And you, as the director of the conservative movement, said, we should organize some kind of that spiritual response that happens. And since that time, like October 10th, I guess it was technically the 15th or 16th, you have spearheaded that happens every single day. I tell that to everybody for 2 reasons. 1, to give you the recognition that is due to you for having the response and the vision to know that that is a response that we needed. But I wanted to ask you a question, and that is, how did you know to do that? And how did you mobilize to do that? And what has transformed in that time? When you and I were there the first time and we davened together, there were 251 souls that we did not know their whereabouts. We didn't know if they were living or they were dead. And now there are, I believe, 59, and we know how many are living and how many are dead. It's changed dramatically. It's a different reality. And can you talk to us a little bit about that arc of time that has happened?
Thank you. I remember that day that we've met, very clear. Actually, on October 7th, few hours after it started, and I had to send my sons to the army, I've thought, where is the textbook that says what a religious movement needs to do in times of crisis? And I couldn't find one. So we've started to ask ourselves, and that happened on October 7th itself, what is our role in the Israeli society today? That's actually a question that we ask ourselves all the time. Since the strategic plan that you talked about, what is our role in the Israeli society, but especially what is our role as a religious movement in times of crisis, like October 7th in a war? We don't have weapons. Unfortunately, I'm not in the age of going to the army, and a lot of us do not. But what can we do? What needs to be done? Now, a lot of people collected food, which is very important. And we thought, religious organization can bring food to the soul. And that's actually what we've started to do. We understood that our role is to hold the hope, to make sure that we can bring hope to people in times that seemed for many people like a disaster that we will never be able to stand up again. We will never be able to defend ourselves. People were afraid. All of us were terrified. Afraid is not even a word. We were terrified. First, we've started the first day with prayers. Thanks COVID, we've learned about Zoom. We've started with prayers in Zoom, and immediately when we saw people start together, we understood that this is our role. The hostages' families needed us. There were a lot of supportive groups that helped them with medical treatment and social things that they needed. But I don't know how many of you heard those hostages that came back, and they talk about it. How religion, how belief helped them. Yeah. How important it is, and people that were totally secular started to keep Shabbat, pray, even invent their own prayers, just to believe that it's going to be okay. We understood that at the first day. That's our role. That's our role as a religious organization, to hold and give this food for spirit, food for soul, for people, and hold the belief with everybody else. Those prayers that we're talking about in the Hostage Square are not a prayer like this. It's a prayer, it's a community prayer. A community prayer in terms of whoever in the square every day, and every day it's a different group of people, we run it together. We have the prayer for the state of Israel, but we always ask, who wants to read it? And people read it in their own way. Some of them are Orthodox and read it in their way, and some are totally secular and add their own words. It doesn't matter. As long as we do have that together, we've learned few things. We need to help, to hold the hope together. We can do that in a community. Nobody can do that alone. It takes too long. And actually, if you had asked me then, would you do that 540 days already? After still every day, I would say, no, I can't. But that's the strength of organization, that one is an organization, it's not one person, or not even one community. We're talking about something that is bigger than that has different communities around the country, different rabbis, different people that can bring, and other organizations that join to that, because we facilitated something that others could join after, a while people wanted to say, I want to help. How can I help you to do that? So, join.
So I want to tell everyone something interesting if you haven't been to Hostage Square. And that is, if you decide that you want to pray after this, in most places in Israel, there is a response for prayer, like that's formalized, that's regular prayer, where someone will say, okay, women are going to go over here, men are going over here, man, you're going to put on a tefillin, you're going to say this. And some people don't feel native to it. They don't feel that they're well versed.
Most of the people don't.
Most people, that's correct. Especially if they're not part of it. But this prayer that we're talking about, this gathering, everyone knows the lyrics to the songs, and everyone's able to hold each other. And what's always so powerful to me about it is that it is a panoply of Orthodox, conservative, Reform. Sometimes non-Jewish people and Christian groups are there, and it really is a moment of unity. I want to ask you a personal question. I hadn't planned on asking you, but I'm thinking about a lot. You were the constant for me at Hostage Square. I was there at least 6 times with groups, and in every group we met families of loved ones. So I remember you in the room when we sat with Shelley Shem Tov. I remember her because she shares a birthday with me, and she was celebrating her birthday, and the next day her son was taken, Omer.
And I had a horrible feeling when she told us the story. I thought, well, she's not going to see her son again, and I was wrong, thank God. And her son just came home. And speaking of prayer, by the way, they gave old expired grape juice that came from Israel to Gaza, and they gave them like a box of grape juice for a week. That's how much they give, to the hostages. They're eating like kings, and Omer would save a little bit of his grape juice each week so he could say Kiddush. I mean, this was not a religious young man, but that's what it meant to him to have that faith. That's exactly what you were talking about. So you have families like Shelley Shem Tov, who you've developed a relationship with, and then you have families like the Nutras, who I was with you with. When we met them, Shelley had her dream come true, and that her son came home and was reunited with her and hugged her. The Nutras haven't. Omer was pronounced dead, killed at some point on either October 7th or immediately afterward, and his body has not been returned. And I'm curious how you find that resilience personally in those stories of hope that you've seen come to fruition, and how you keep that resilience strong in stories like the Nutras.
It's a hard question.
I know, I'm sorry.
When it all began, none of us knew who's alive and who's not. And it took, first of all, the first 50 days we almost knew nothing. Only after a few people were released in the first deal, we started to get some of the information, and some movies started to come out. And many times the feeling is that we need to hope and believe that whatever happens, it will be okay. Now, many times you tell family, we will wait with you, he'll come back, like Shelley. Like, I don't know if you were with us when Mindy, Emily's mother, was with us.
Yes, of course.
Mindy talked about her daughter and said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. My daughter is so independent. I always know that she's going to be okay, but I don't know what to hope for. I hope she's going to be back, and in the meantime, I'm trying to do good. Okay? Buchstav family. Buchstav family, they waited for their son. They knew he was kidnapped alive. Yes,
because they saw a video of him that day.
Right, and they were waiting. And the story that held them all the time, and held all of us, was that when he was kidnapped with his girlfriend, with his spouse. And she said to him, they took your guitar, they took your drums. And he said, never mind. If at the end of this day, a Palestinian child in Gaza will play a guitar, I'm okay with that. And those small stories gave us hope. Those small stories that sometimes horrible thing happens. We don't know, we can't predict every disaster, but we have to hold the good things that's going on around us. We need to see light in everything that happens. Look, at the same time, when those hostages, and we talked with those families, as you said at the beginning, my 3 boys were in there fighting. I didn't talk to them for weeks. Nobody knows what to expect. But those lights, those small things were like a sign. It's going to be okay. And within the Utra family, we were very close. We are very close to the whole family, the grandparents, cousins, and of course their parents that are now in Israel. And every time we talked, we hoped, although they didn't have any sign that if he's alive or not, but we hoped and prayed together and meant in every word. You read the prayer for Israel and read Yechazek Yedei. I forgot the word for that. Yedei Meginei Eretz Kodshenu. Yechazek Yedei will strengthen the hands of the people who save or protect us. And I read it, all those, we read those words over and over and over again. I really hope, I really hold the hope. I can't do that alone. I could do that only in the hostage square. And it's people ask me, why do you go to the hostage square? It's so painful. I keep saying it gives me hope.
Yes.
It gives me hope to go there. First of all, because we're waiting for something to happen. You're waiting, you have something to wait for. You just not fall into your deep depression. You think about the future and you think about the people and the souls that are there and will come back. And remember every day that you pray for them to come back, so they must come back, whether they're alive, and unfortunately, even if they're not alive anymore.
They have to come back for that. And I'll tell you one quick thing of hope that you know is that there's a piano player, a young man named Alon, who was taken from the...
Emanu-El.
Emanu-El, who was taken from the Nova Festival, and everyone had presumed he was dead, and the family had marked him as dead. And sure enough, one of the hostages came back and said, he's not dead, he's with me. I can tell you every single thing about him. I know every detail about him. He has lost sight in one eye. And so those are the stories of hope.
You know what Alon does to give himself hope? That's what we heard from Sharabi.
Sharabi,
yeah. That he's a piano player, so he plays piano on his body. He plays that, and at the beginning they thought he's crazy. He lost his mind because he's doing things like that and playing and, and then they understood that gives him the strength. That gives him the hope that one day it's not going to be like this, it's going to be like this. And his mother said he left the piano open, so I don't close it. I wait for him to come back, and instead of doing that.
Let him come back and play soon, amen. I want to switch gears a little bit to pre-October 7th and even now. We just gave an example that if someone wanted to engage in religion in Israel, women go here, men go here, you have to put on tefillin. Why? Because the model we have of Judaism in the diaspora, and in particular in America, is really not the model in Israel. Here, people say, are you Jewish? Yes, I'm a conservative Jew, I'm a Reformed Jew, I'm an Orthodox Jew, I'm Jewish, but I'm not affiliated with the synagogue, I'm Jewish, but we're interfaith relationship, and these kinds of things are all different types of flavors of what Judaism looks like and how you can celebrate that Judaism. In Israel, we don't have that. They have a phrase that I really don't like. They say, dati or chiloni. You are Jewish or you are secular. I don't like that phrase because it implies that if you're secular, that you can't have spirituality or religion in other ways. And the fight that you and your predecessor, Yishar Hess, and others have been fighting for decades has been a fight to incorporate religious pluralism in Israel. That, just so everyone here knows, I know you obviously know this, Rakefet, that means that if, example, let's say two young people in this congregation fell in love and they wanted to get married and they decided they wanted to live in Israel and get married in Israel. And they were blessed to have a relationship with one of the clergy from this synagogue and they wanted them to marry him. We're not allowed to by law. This has happened to me. I have gone to Israel and I have spoken words to the couple, but I am not permitted to officiate at a wedding in Israel, nor are any of my colleagues. If we have soldiers who are members of this congregation who go off and become lone soldiers, and if God forbid, they should fall in battle, I can go to the funeral, I can offer a eulogy, I cannot officiate at the funeral. It is not permitted to me or any of my Reform or conservative colleagues, and by the way, to half of the Orthodox ones, they're not permitted either. So there is this divide of what is permitted for us for all of these life cycle events and prayer and what that looks like. What does that fight look like for you to try and bring religious pluralism to Israel? What are some of the battles that you have to face, and what are some of the successes that we've been blessed to have under your leadership?
So we split it into two. We're trying to do that, I hope I'm saying that right in English, from bottom up, from bottom down, and then
top down and bottom up.
I knew I'm going to confuse
You did great.
Top down or bottom up. We're doing both, okay? Top down, we go a lot of times to the government, to the Israeli parliament, try to convince. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the government, it depends on so many things. But political is a very complicated thing and very split in Israel. And the fact that Orthodox, and especially now ultra-Orthodox, and all the rest, because it's kind of funny, we don't have any problem with the secular. We have problem with those who are consider themselves as the only option for Judaism, which mainly are ultra-Orthodox parties, not necessarily people, and that's the difference. So we work on that level, Okay, and we try to change the rules and everything that's possible. For example, a couple, like you said right now, a couple can get married today. Yeah, by law, it's not considered right because they won't be signed. We have something that you don't. And on our ID, it's written if we're married, divorced. Okay, so on their ID, they're going to stay single. Okay, but they'll get all the
social responses,
right? Like a married couple.
Yeah, like Social Security, all the other government.
Everything, mortgage, whatever goes to a married couple, they can get. But on their ID, they're going to be. What we have learned that 25% of the Israelis do not care anymore. So we can work, and we should work with the government, but it's not less important to work on the ground. And we are a grassroots organization. We set marriage, and we tell them, stay single in your ID. It doesn't really matter anymore. It's your own thing. It depends how you live. The problem is that a lot of them don't want to do that Jewishly. That's the question. Do they understand that there is an option to do a Jewish service that is not ultra-Orthodox or not Haredi Orthodox? And that's the challenge that we're facing. And in the last few years, we've learned you have a synagogue with walls and everything, and people, when they want to pray, they get into a synagogue. We're doing more and more services outside in the public area. For example, Yom Kippur, and this is a great story, 3 years, just before October 7th, Yom Kippur, we did at Habima Square. Habima is the biggest city square in Tel Aviv, in the country, but in Tel Aviv. It's a huge place. A rabbi with 2 other people came with Sefer Torah, and we did Neila. And we thought maybe they'll have 10 people. If we're lucky, we're going to have 15. Thousands of people that just crossed and saw, oh, that's Judaism that I can like. I can stand with my girl, with my daughter. I can stand with my wife. We can touch the Torah. We can read together. It's friendly, it's open, it's egalitarian. It's ours, actually. And I can take responsibility on my Judaism. And again, it's not a building. If I'll ask them to get into a synagogue, they'll never do it. But if I'm going to come to them and be there where they are. Funny, I have thousands of videos from this prayer. You can imagine that those videos were not taken by religious people, by Orthodox people, okay? Those are people that felt, I'm comfortable here. That's my space. I can do whatever I want. And I also respect Judaism and enjoy a religious Jewish service. The opportunity to come to the people is different in Israel than in here. We are an organization that's not built only for conservative Jews. We don't just serve conservative Jews in Israel. With all the respect, it's not enough. It's not enough. We serve the Israeli society. We're a vehicle for better Israeli, democratic, pluralistic state. If we should do that in the Knesset, we'll do that in the Knesset. If we should do that in the city square, we'll do that in the city square. But we'll do that wherever Israelis need us. Instead of saying, this is our synagogue, please join us, be members. Maybe they will, but most of the time, they probably won't.
It's a fantastic strategy. I will tell you, that Friday night in Israel is my favorite time for 2 reasons. If we're in Jerusalem, we always go to the Tachana Rishonah, where there is a more religious group, and what they do to accommodate the religious group is they daven Kabbalat Shabbat. And there you can have Kabbalat Shabbat anytime in late afternoon before the evening comes in. You can include music, and they have a different group leading, and it's spiritual, and there's instrumentation, and hundreds and hundreds of people come in, and they sing and they dance, and it's the most spiritual service. I, who am religious but not very spiritual, I yearn for it every single week. And if we're not in Jerusalem, we go to Tel Aviv, and we go to the Namal. And the Namal is the pier at the water in Jerusalem, and there they get almost thousands of people who gather and join together in prayer in the same format. And what you find is that there are Israelis who are there, and when you meet them there, it really does make an incredible difference. You're on tour this week because there are some very important elections going on. A long time ago, there was a guy with a dream named Theodore Herzl, and he reminded us of what could be. And he set up the World Zionist Congress, which is a group of Jews from around the world that will help lend their voice to what the future of the Zionist state will look like. Most people, by the way, face two things when talking about Israel. One is they look at the existential issues of Israel and they think, well, it's lovely to talk about pluralism. Let's make sure Israel survives. I get that fight. We can't ignore the other fights in the interim, right? You can't forget to take your medicines, even though your daily medicines you take every day, even though you're fighting a disease at the moment. The second thing is that when we talk about the World Zionist Congress, people say, well, it sounds Jewish, sounds important. I have no idea what it is or what my role is in it. Can you tell us in an elevator pitch very quickly, what is the World Zionist Congress and what can we do to be supportive of it?
World Zionist Organization is our government. Okay? I vote for the Knesset in Israel. But Israel doesn't belong only to Israelis. Israel belongs to the Jewish people. You own Israel the same way that I own Israel. Israel belongs to you as much as it belongs to me. I contribute to Israel in one way, you do that in your own way, okay? I put my efforts to make this place, or to make Israel a better, pluralistic, democratic Jewish state. You do that in your own way. I do my share, I need you to do your share. Voting for the WZO is to vote to this Knesset, to this government, to this coalition that's gonna make sure that Israel will be a pluralistic Jewish state. That's why it's so important which party you vote for. It's not just voting. Whom do you vote for? It's not your system like in US that you have black or white or right or left, or you'll put it in your own way. Okay, two parties. There are a lot, somebody said like 20 something, I don't know, a lot of parties, okay? Each one says different things. The one that represents the Masorti, the conservative movement, the conservative values is Merkaz. We can vote to our values or not. But if you don't vote for your values, somebody else vote for his or her values, which means you lose power. If you want Israel to be the place that you are proud, you prayed for the state of Israel. You care about it. It's yours. If you want to be proud of this place, if you want to say it represents my values, vote for those values. Make sure that those values going to be there, not just by people that going to say that out loud, but going to act for that. Millions of dollars going in, this organization has. They split it by the values that they believe in. If you're represented, you can have it. Or your values can have it. Or the things that you believe in can have it. If you don't, somebody else does. So if we want Ramah camps, because those, by the way, they invest in Israel, but actually I less represent that part, but you should know. Also, the organizations that are abroad, like Ramah, USY, all of those, okay? They support those organizations as well. If you want to support Ramah camps, that's your way. The money that goes there is tremendous. I know we're not talking about money on Shabbat, but the values represented by the things that you believe in and you put your efforts in. This is your government. You can vote for your government and you can say somebody else will vote for me. But then we can't look and say, it's not the country that I want. If you want to have, it's not the pluralism that I believe in. If you want the pluralism that you believe in, do the 5 minutes act, $5 cost, and vote for the WZO. And of course, my values, and I hope yours, is to vote Merkaz, this number 17.
I will tell you that voting for the WZO is as easy as voting for your all-star favorites in baseball or basketball. Dory and I were just at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We voted for the nominees. We voted for who we wanted to see come in. It's an easy thing, and it costs a whopping $5. And the reason they do that is to make sure that it's authentic. It's not to make money. And in our weekly message that goes around to the congregation, and we'll make sure we put it on the website also, there will be the link for all of you to vote. And when you do vote, what you do is you give fuel and you give wind to the wings of people like Rakefet, who are on the ground, who are demonstrating, not in word, but in deed, what our movement and our values are about. And I just want to say on behalf of all of us who are in this room and who aren't, how blessed we are to have your leadership, how appreciative we are, how you lead with your heart and your head. And I believe our movement in Israel and around the world is representing the very best values because of the direction you're leading us in. We pray that you go from strength to strength and you never lose that sense of hope.
תודה.
Thank you, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
It's our honor.